When we last looked at the Mandalorians, we saw their rise to power and how they became a significant threat to the Republic. As well as this, we saw how Great Mandalore the Indomitable was slain by forest monsters, and a new Mandalore took his place, so let's carry on from there. The 20 years following the Mandalorian crusades, which officially ended with Indomitable's death, came something named the Restoration Period. Now this was a time for major rebuilding for all sides that were affected by the war, especially for the Mandalorians, who, under a new Mandalore, the Ultimate, cool name, began rebuilding the clans which had been diminished during the crusades. There was a problem with this though. The Torg, the original Mandalorian species, had begun to die out. Yeah, the Crusades, well, huge amounts of the Torg had been killed, although it's important to remember that Mandalore the Ultimate was a Torg himself, not a human, which is a bit of a misconception. Now, due to the lack of the Torg, Mandalore started aggressively recruiting whoever would answer his call. Remember, the Mandalorians aren't bothered about race or species. But don't think rebuilding the clans was all Mandalore was interested in. Creating outposts, officially for trading, but secretly they were used to spread the Mandalorians' ideals of a great warrior race, or culture really. As well as this, they would serve as a forward command posts in the future. But that comes in later. With these new recruitment methods, the Mandalorian ranks swelled like never before, and the clans gained power like never before. To keep order amongst the marauders and warlords, these new Mandalorians introduced newer regimes, such as a uniform suggested by Mandalore's closest advisor, Cassius Fett. Yep, the Fetts have a bit more of a noble heritage than you'd imagine. These new Mandalorians were turned into elite, well-disciplined fighting force, and became known as Neo-Crusaders, some of the most fearsome warriors that the galaxy would probably ever see. Now, other significant events happened in the Restoration period. For example, one enterprising Mandalorian attempted to create a group of Force-sensitive Mandalorian warriors, known as Mandalorian Knights, which is a seriously terrifying force. I mean, with the bravado of a Mandalorian Crusader, combined with the Force, I mean, send shivers down your spine, but it'd be pretty cool. Many Mandalorians believed that a great last battle was at hand. This was largely due to the true Sith being in hiding ever since their defeat in the Great Sith War, and everyone knows as soon as the Sith come around, trouble's round the corner. Believe it or not, the idea of a great battle was enough to make many Mandalorians follow their leader without question, which Mandalore the Ultimate utilised to its maximum potential. By the end of the Restoration period, Mandalore launched a new campaign, putting his endless Neo-Crusaders to use. They quickly began conquering systems around the Outer Rim, and in under a decade had more territory than the Hutts. A significant achievement, I think you will agree. Now, this period's known as the Aggression Period, and you can see why. Remember last episode when I said the Mandalorians' definition of war was basically total extinction of the enemy? Well, they pretty much did it again on the planet Cathar, when Cassius Fett drove the defeated Cathar species into the sea. He then ordered his Crusaders to execute every last one of them. Now, the Mandalorians wiped out around 90% of the Cathar species, which, you've got to admit, is pretty crazy, but it's still better than the V2. I mean, there's no V2 left, so anything's better than the V2. Now, it's important to remember that during the Aggression era, the Mandalorians weren't really opposed by any significant force. The largest force at this time will have been the Republic, but they had no ambition to go to war with the Mandalorians so soon after just ending one. For this reason, the Republic basically did nothing. All the whilst, the Mandalorians plundered more and more resources such as fuel, and their ranks continued to grow by recruiting those from the conquered planets. So whilst the Republic lay dormant, worried about the Mandalorians kept on expanding and becoming more and more of a threat. Which eventually you can guess, started getting difficult for the Republic. Yes, you guessed it, eventually Mandalore decided to hit the Republic directly. This was basically an act of war. Although little skirmishes had happened between the Republic and the Mandalorians, this was obviously official, and the Mandalorians began to head for the inner core, the very heart of the Republic. Now, the Republic was, needless to say, not ready for this, largely due to how the Republic did not fare anywhere near as well as the Mandalorians in the Restoration period, and for that reason, their military and navy was in a bit of a sorry state. As well as this, the Republic's tacticians could not prove capable to combat the Mandalorians' ruthless tactics. Oh, looks like it's time for me to point out another Mandalorian war crime. They are quite fun. An example of the ruthlessness of the Mandalorians is when invading the planet of Sirocco. I don't think that's how it's pronounced, don't quote me on it. When fortifying its cities, Mandalore the Ultimate saw this as, how we quote it, defense without honor, as the Mandalorians would be unable to reach the cities and have the great battle that, well, they desired. For this reason, Mandalore decided that they would die a coward's death and chose to bombard the city with nuclear arms and kill everyone in it. Yeah, you don't think you can just hide away from the Mandalorians. If they can't fight you, then they'll just get rid of you. Now, not everyone suffered from the Mandalorians' aggression. Many weapon manufacturers prospered. I mean, you know, they're obviously going to. Who better to sell weapons to than the people who are addicted to war, right? Now, one even attempted to sell Mandalore the Ultimate a bioweapon in the form of an exogorth, or space slug. You know the thing that tried to eat the Millennium Falcon in Empire Strikes Back in the asteroid? Yeah, one of those. Now, thankfully for the rest of the galaxy, this plan never really came to fruition. I think the space slug kind of got stuck in deep space somewhere. But it just proves that the Mandalorians were willing to use everything at their disposal, which is quite interesting. Now, it's very important to remember something. Although the Republic was now officially at arms, the Jedi were not involved at the war, and for this reason the Mandalorians found it easy to conquer without the elite knights of the Republic. And it seemed that victory was within hand until one charismatic Jedi Knight would ruin it all. Revan. You'll find he crops up an incredible amount in Star Wars lore. He had a very big effect on the galaxy, and this is pretty much where it all began, so pay attention. Revan, along with his apprentice Malak, led hundreds of followers known as Revanists against the Mandalorians after Fett's massacre at Cathar, you know, with the whole entire leading them into the sea thing. Now, fun fact for you, Revan's iconic mask is actually Mandalorian. At the Battle of Cathar, just before Fett gave the order, one Mandalorian woman cried out against the onslaught, and she was killed. Now, here, when obviously Revan and Malak went to Cathar after the massacre had happened, he found the dead Mandalorian woman and took her mask and vowed to stop the Mandalorians. So, yeah, that's a very interesting fact. Revan's mask is actually the one that belonged to that Mandalorian woman who spoke out against Cassius Fett's order. So, yeah, that's a fun fact for you. Now, these Revanists were good, and I mean really good. They made short work of the elite Neo-Crusaders who'd been softened by their easy conquests, and continued to push them back with very little resistance. And then on Malachor V, Revan would end Mandalore the Ultimate's reign and stop the Crusades in one swift move. Facing against Mandalore in single combat, Revan slew the Great Warrior. Knowing that a new Mandalore would quickly take his place, an experimental superweapon was activated known as the Mass Shadow Generator. I've got a separate video which involves it. This destroyed the entire Mandalorian fleet, as well as a decent amount of the Republic's in a huge gravitational field. From here, Revan and his Padawan Malak went to a far darker side, but that's really a big story for another day. With the Mandalorians leaderless and with majority of their warriors dead, the clans dispersed. Revan destroyed the Mandalorians' weapons, armor, even their war mounts. He took Mandalore's mask from Indomitable's body, so another leader could not be named, ensuring that never again a Mandalore would rise and threaten the galaxy. Yet one did, but that's a story for another day. Thank you for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed the Mandalorian video part 2, I believe this is. If you did enjoy, please do like, comment and subscribe so I can get to work making part 3. I'm not sure how many parts this is going to be in because it's a very fun subject, but I'm really enjoying it and it's very expansive. So please do continue to show support so I can get the parts chugged out. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.